All right, so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Edgefinder economic data to start the week, see if there's any interesting assets that we could potentially find some good swing trade setups or some key levels that you can potentially day trade out of as well. We'll see what we can find. That's what I like to do on Sundays anyway. So let's pull up the Edgefinder, shall we? Hang on, I got a bunch of stuff in my way. Daniel, how long ago did you start trading and how long did it take to profitability? Do you trade any real money? I actually trade mostly prop firms, like active day trading, and with real money I prefer to invest. Like in Canada it's a little bit better because you have like something called a TSFA account, so you can literally buy stocks and you won't be taxed on the gains that you make for those stocks. So I prefer to invest real money. I do trade a little bit of capital with automation, but not manually. I think that's just a lot of work. I prefer any manual trading for my futures evaluations. That's what I save all my manual trading for. Because the ROI on futures evaluations is quite good if you do the risk properly. And I do have risk systems on my YouTube as well, if you want to check out how I do it. Okay, so USDCAD is the most bullish. So basically, guys, if you don't know what this is the Edgefinder. What it does is it takes all of the most recent economic data reports and it gives it a bullish or bearish score for the asset. So for USDCAD, it'll take all of the economic data reports for the US and Canada and kind of give it a comparison and give it either bullish or bearish depending on which is stronger. So obviously US dollar is crushing the Canadian dollar right now in terms of economic, far more than any other asset. So if we look at the bullishness, we can also see, let me go to the history. I can show you the history of this pair too. So it's really interesting when we look at the history because we can see how over the last month it's kind of played out. So you can actually go higher time frame, but I think a month is valid enough. So you can see at the beginning of the month, we started kind of neutral and then started gaining some nice bullish momentum, right? So if we look at the USDCAD on the chart, let's go to all pairs, USDCAD. We can see on the 1 hour chart anyway. Let's go to the 4 hour chart. Oh, and this was a trade setup we had actually previously. It worked out very nicely. Okay. Let me pull up my 200 EMA as well. There we go. So if we look at the chart, we can see that, since for the last 2 weeks, it's been running up really, really hard, right? And we did have sell-off right before it started running off. So around September 16th, we started to run hot. So let's go look at the Edgefinder. September 16th, you can see that the economics actually shifted before the price action shifted, which is super interesting, right? So you can get ahead of these moves quite well if you're on top of the economics here. We can see September 16th is right here. So we were bullish through that whole run and even more so in the last few days. But we turned bullish even before. And these are the kind of situations I look for where it goes bullish, but price action is selling off. So that's a perfect time to look for a pullback for a long because we know the economics are bullish, but then we can actually go long on one of those pullbacks. And a lot of my swing trades you'll see are limit orders because I like to find my key levels to go long. So for example, on USDCAD, I know it's bullish, so this is how I would set up my trade situation. There's a few things, a few ways that I like to set up my swing trades. The first one is we can mark obvious key levels. Now we have an obvious key level right here, right? Such an overwhelmingly obvious key levels. Not so obvious key levels can be like the 200 EMA, or another one could be potentially a Fibonacci retracement, where we can run it from the low to the high of the previous move. Now the problem with this Fibonacci is we don't know if the move's done yet, but we can assume, let's say it does start to pull back, we can pre-plan for it. And I generally like to look at the 382 or the 50 level. So that's just a percentage of retracement off the previous move. So the 382 is a 38% retracement off the previous move. That's how it's calculated. So the interesting thing here is if we look at the 382 level, we actually have a mean reversion pivot point right back here. And then that kind of leads right up all the way perfectly almost to the 382. Just make that a bit smaller like that. So the 382 level is actually quite nice on USDCAD. We might not get in. This thing might just keep flying to the moon. But if I like to play the if and then game, if price pulls back, then I would like to go long. So this is how I would set up this swing trade. I just set up a limit order here, right there. And then generally I pull up an indicator called the ATR, average true range, just to kind of get an idea of how big of a stop loss I want. There's a few ways you could do it. Like I could literally just set my stop loss below the 50 level, which is probably not a bad setup, just for a little bit of extra defense on the stop loss, right? And then we could go for the previous swing high, or you go like you could go aim for a 1 to 3R or a 1 to 4R and just trail your profit as you're pumping into the profit there. So that would be a good setup. And if we look at the ATR, I can see that I usually like to go like just above the average, which is, you can see up here, right? This is above average. It's about 35 pips. So this stop loss I have of 35 pips is probably perfect for this trade setup. So that's my trade setup. Now the problem with this is we don't know if price is going to pull back, but if it does, then we will go long. Another problem is we are 66 pips away from our entry. So it would take quite a decent sized pullback. But regardless, if it does go there, then I would be willing to go along with this bullish momentum. And we can also see that the Canadian dollar is super weak against the US dollar. And I don't see that changing anytime soon because Canadian economy is just hilariously cosmic joke right now. So there is no hope for us up here. Pray for us, please. Thank you. At least I do most of my business in US dollars. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty interesting there. Let's look at a few other assets. What I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna look at the assets that are like actually strong or weak. So another interesting one is GBP/NZD. Now that's not a very common asset, but it is very bullish and it's kind of abstract, which I like. It might not have a lot of volatility. So when we do these trade setups with these non-volatile assets, I'll show you why it might not be as volatile, although GBP is usually a little bit more volatile than normal. So let's go back to here. I'm just going to add this one actually to my swing trade setups. Add to weekly swing trades. There we go. Okay. Okay, so GBP/NZD. I think I have, GBP/NZD. It's right here. Cool. We had this was another trade setup that we made here last week. It actually played out almost perfectly. Smashed a 1 to 2. It could have actually even been 1 to 3, but I thought 1 to 2 would have been safer because of the previous swing high. So that's nice that we're seeing these a week after. But once again, I mean, honestly, like if I'm looking at this right now, I probably wouldn't even. Yeah, this Fibonacci level actually is irrelevant now because we've broken that structure. So let's see if we can find something else. Clear all that. Yeah, it's hard to say in this situation just because the most strong key level I see here is this guy right here. We have a couple, well, it's a little ugly, but it's not that bad. So we have a couple reactions. It's actually, oh wait, I thought, Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, we have a couple of mean reversions here, here. So pulling back to this level could be the closest price I'd be willing to go in at. But the problem with this, it's so pumped from there right now. That's 230 pips. So if we can look at a lower time frame situation, I can do that. So what we can do is here, something like that. And the 382 actually looks a little bit okay in this situation. You can see we had a reaction here, we had a hard mean reversion here, and it's a 38% retracement off this previous move. So I think, if we don't want to go like super conservative down here, this would be like the super dream level. But the 382 here wouldn't be too bad. So it could look something like this. It's actually it's actually pretty volatile. So if we look at the 4-hour time frame, yeah, I think like probably about 60 pips would be acceptable, 60 to 70 pips. So let's set that up here for a potential long entry right here. So, we could actually go pretty aggressive here. Let's say if it just doesn't work out, if it just breaks through, we could go 50 pips. And then we could target like a 1 to 3 just to start. I always like to start at 1 to 3 and then kind of manage it as I go. Because it's swing trading so slow. So you can like manage it day by day, usually. So that's not too bad right there. So that's kind of like GBP, NZD ideal setup for me. Obviously, if this one breaks, if it just smashes through the stop loss, the next entry I'd want to get would be way down here at this second dream level right there, just because there's a lot of reaction on that price point. So that could be a pivot point for sure. So let's add that bad boy to the setups as well, and we'll watch that. So if you guys, I'll have this recorded as well. I'll pop it in the VIP channel. If anyone wants to see it afterwards, I'll put it on my YouTube as well. Australia will give Canada a run for its money. Yeah, I know. I feel like we're kind of in the same boat. Okay, what's next? China 50. I don't think I'll be looking at that. USD JPY. Let's look at that one because it's super interesting, right? Everyone loves USD JPY. Does anyone here not love USD JPY? And if so, what is wrong with you? Okay. Oh, never mind. I don't love it anymore after seeing this. This is ridiculous. Okay, so we are bullish, right? And it looks like, okay, so we have a range here, and I'm going to mark up this range, and it's not going to be pretty, but ranges aren't always going to be perfect. Now, that's a range. And the reason why I say it's a range is because 90% of the price action, or probably like 95, other than this one fake out, is within the range. So that's a range. That's the definition of a range. So what we could do is we could find the top of this range and enter in a long, right? So maybe like around here. Let's see, is there a psychological number around here anywhere? Not really. Yeah, 149 even is actually a psychological number right there. So we could do a psychological range bounce. A psychological range bounce play. Is that an actual term? I'm not sure, but if it is, you're welcome. I just made it up. Sounds good. So we could do this like that. And then for a stop loss situation, we go long like Donkey Kong. And I think we can zoom out here. Once again, it's hard to pick a range with the ATR just because it's so all over the place. But if I'm just kind of looking at an average, I think 50 pips is probably fair. 50 pips stop loss. I think this one would do a bit better with a little bit bigger just because it gives more forgiveness. So let's just go with like a 60 here. just because if it comes back into the range a little bit and bounces out, we don't want to get faked out of the range bounce. So we'll go like that, and then we will aim for 3 to 1 once again. And the way you can manage these trades, guys, is if you get in the trade and you do get a nice entry, you can move your stop loss to break even once you're like 1R in the profit. So once you're 60 pips in the profit, move it to break even, and then you're in a risk-free trade. And if you're at 2R in the profit, then move your stop loss 1R behind. So you'd move your stop loss another 60 pips behind the price. That way you're at least making 1R on the trade if it comes back. So if you risked 1.5%, I like to risk 1.5% on these swing trades. That's what I like to do. Then at least you make 1.5% minimum if you get a nice run. But like if you trail these things, sometimes they can just go and go and go and go. You could get like 5R, 6R. I've had situations like that in the past. It's really nice. So that's my trade setup here for USD JPY. Let's save that one. Can you imagine we look at these all next week and they all just completely lost? It usually does. That usually doesn't happen. Usually the trade setups are pretty good, but it can happen. It can. If it's probable, there's a possibility, even if it's low. Okay, let's see what else we got here. And let me know in the chat if there's anything that you want to look at. There was a huge change in the COT data for Dow as well. Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's take a look at Dow. COT. Yeah, bullish. Super bullish. Okay, that's interesting to know. Yeah, it could be good because the reason why it's getting a little bit less of a score is because the seasonality is bearish. The other thing I don't like is that the interest rates are running against it, and usually that has a lot of weight, and also employment change. So I would be a little bit hesitant to look for longs here, personally. Maybe give it another week and kind of see how that plays out. Okay, what else we got? Let's see. Yes, a more pullback. Yeah. Right now, like if I'm thinking about like let's go to, if I'm thinking about like US 500 here, you can see look at this 200 EMA bounce, two of them, just beautiful. We could wait for I think I talked about this last time. I wanted to get a 200 EMA bounce. Ideally, it would even align because this is a very clear bullish run right here. And ideally, I would like to get a 200 EMA bounce that aligns with like the 382 or the 50 level. At this point, unless it really starts dumping this week, it looks like it would be a 382 bounce, which would be around 65, 69. So this entry, there's two entries here. I'd like to take this one if it aligns with the 200 EMA, or this one. So one of those two. So if I'm gonna do both, if I want to do both, then I would try to set up my swing trades so my stop loss at least covers both of those levels. That way, if I do go into drawdown, I still have that last defense. So I'll go like this, and it might be a large stop loss, right? But that's okay. It'd be like a less aggressive trade, something like that. That's what I would do. $60 stop loss, which isn't even that crazy. Let's look at the ATR. I mean, it is quite a bit above average, but we've had, it's just a very conservative trade setup. Just because those two levels are so key that I don't want to get knocked out before I get to test my second preferred level. So I think for the US 500, I'm still hesitant to be long overall, just because I've been saying that, we're kind of like, we've been selling off even though interest rates were cuts, and even though they were talking about cutting them again, that should cause it to pump. And I think it's that thing like buy the rumor and sell the news, right? That's kind of what we saw happen. But look, on Friday we ran up strong. So buyers are still present. We did touch this 382 level perfectly, and it bounced really hard. So that's why these Fibonacci levels are super powerful. Like, other people are watching them as well. It's not just me. It's not just me and myself on a computer watching these fib levels. Like, a lot of people like to use them to determine, especially when they line up with previous reversion points. Yeah, so this is kind of the level I'd be looking at to go long, even though we already touched it. Like, we could go for a double test. We could go for a double bottom potentially. So I'll add this one to the swing trade setups. We'll watch that. All right, let's see what else. I know you guys probably want to look at gold, and we can. I will warn you guys that gold is neutral right now. You see that? Very neutral. So it's difficult to read, but I will give you kind of my 2 cents on gold, since I trade gold a lot. Let's look at this breakdown. So the breakdown's obviously neutral, right? But the economics, so the trend and the season are in favor of gold, but the economics are kind of not in favor. And I feel like the economics have a bit more weight than like what's happened previously. The trend reading obviously is strong too, because we broken all-time highs and all that stuff. But let me go to the history. So look at this, right? This is the score over the last month, and we were so strong at the beginning of the month. And even though we've been losing economic steam on gold, pretty weak now, we can see that price action has something else to say, right? And this is kind of that similar situation that we were seeing with USD CAD, right? Where the economics were cooling off, or sorry, the economics were building up for USD CAD, but price was selling off. It was contradicting what the economics were saying, and that's happening with gold right now. It's kind of contradicting what the economics say, which is interesting. Now, gold is a bit unique, where it does still run hot from uncertainty, and I feel like there is uncertainty. So I would feel like US 500 is more likely to sell off harder than gold would be. But I think also gold, just if we're going to make an economic play, we could see a retracement in the upcoming weeks. And I've been saying this last week too, that it should cool off, even though we did get a nice run. I think, a pullback here somewhere. I don't want to say be permanent bearish on gold. Obviously, I love gold. I think it's going to be at $5,000 an ounce eventually here. But for a short-term time window to look for trade setups, we can take a look at this previous run here. Sorry, I'll zoom in a bit. This is a bit crazy. And just kind of thinking about a level here, I think the best play I would like to see it come back down to 3,600 at the very least, right? Because we are at 37, so that'd be $170 retracement, which is, let's see here, 170. Yeah, 4.5% retracement on gold. So that would be relevant, right? That would be a relevant retracement. So that's kind of, it doesn't really align with much of a Fibonacci, but it might align with 200 EMA if the timing's right. So that's something interesting to watch out for. Obviously, we're going to be testing the all-time high again to start the week. Maybe we'll even come up and test 3,800, which would be up here. But for now, I don't have a swing trade set up on gold, just because we are neutral economically. And it's just one of those things where it's that's kind of like why I like to day trade gold, because I can at least look at the 1 hour momentum. So if we go to the 1 hour chart, and this is kind of the logic the PFK alpha follows, right? We can pull up the EMAs, and if we look at the 1 hour chart, we can see that currently we are kind of bullish on the 1 hour. We have bullish momentum on these EMAs. We had a bit of a rough 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, with it just kind of chopping back and forth. I think my gold EA was up 7.5% on my account, and by the end of the week it was only up 3%. So I gave some of that profit back because of these choppy conditions. But that's just going to be the reality. You never know when it's going to start chopping, and it's hard to trade these conditions for anyone. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But I don't have a swing trade position for gold. Like, I could do a hypothetical one real quick for you guys. Like, what did I do? This run here. This is a run. So we could be really strict, and well, I mean, this level's not bad. Like, look at the nice bounce off the 382. 382 has been the theme of the day so far. It seems like everything's been lining up with the 382 or already had bounced off the 382. And the good thing about the 382 is that if you have a really strong run, the retracement to the 382 is usually the pivot point. If you have a weaker run, the retracement to the 50 or the 618 is usually the pivot point. So if you have a really, really strong move like this, then look at the 382. If you have a weaker move where it's kind of chopping up a bit more, look at the 50, look at the 618 for entries. Yeah, that's not bad though. I would say if I was going to enter, if I had to go long on gold, I would go long here. I mean, this is the most obvious spot. Like you could just call it 37.30. 37.30. Okay. So watch that level this week. 37.30 could be valid for buys, and it might line up with the 200 EMA by the time it comes back down. Because this 200 EMA is going to have a lot of momentum, especially after this run. It's not going to start reversing for a while. It'll run up before it runs down, even if price is selling off. So, yeah, that's cool to look at. Any other assets anyone is interested in? We can take a quick look. I'll take a look at the bearish assets here real quick. Trade ideas. So this here, let me just hide my camera for a second. So EURUSD and EURUSD, AUDUSD, and CADCHF are all -7. So we can take a quick look at those three real quick. Let's do that. So the first one's EURUSD. Let's look at that one. EURUSD has been interesting because we were bullish on that for a while, and then it started to shift, and now we're going bearish. Now, okay, so we already did analyze this one last week or late last week, maybe on Friday. I'm looking at this level. This is such a beautiful level here. We had a sell-off. This is what I call a crab claw. This is my trademark pattern. So a crab claw is a super powerful type of price action where you have strong sell-off and then buyers step back in, but they have almost no strength, and then it rolls over again. It kind of reminds me of like a little crab claw at the bottom of the move here. So, and then it just dumps for some reason. That's what I've always seen it. So yeah, I'm looking to go short there, and then we could do a very similar setup. Yeah, not a very volatile asset. I think 30. Oh, this is the 1 hour chart. Let's go here. Yeah, 40 pips would probably be pretty valid on EURUSD. 40 pip stop loss. You don't really even need to go much. You could probably do 35 here, because like if it breaks that structure for some reason, you want to get out of the trade, right? We have enough defense. So yeah, we go with 3-1, something like that. That could be a nice little step. And we're getting kind of close to that, right? Kind of close. Not bad. Let's see if that lines up with a fib retracement of any sort. Yeah, so it's pretty close to the 50 retracement. It's pretty close. It could be a bit better, but it's pretty close. So, yeah, we'll add that one to the weekly swing trades. And then what do we got? Let's look at CADCHF. Okay, another short Canadian situation. Oops. Okay. Exact same type of setup I was looking for. We were analyzing this thing as well. See, I'm always trying to stay on top of these pairs. But we didn't quite get the pullback we were looking for. It got pretty close. Bef- yeah, we were 12 pips away from our entry. That would have been a beautiful dump, but sometimes you just miss it. That's part of the game. But this was such a beautiful key level. It was just we just couldn't get buyers to get back up into that sell zone, unfortunately. Mid last week, I guess, or so. Back on no, that was Monday. So I was analyzing this thing like 2 weeks ago, waiting for that entry, but never got it, and that's okay. I think for now, I don't even know where I'd want to enter now. I still want to get in on that level, but it looks like it's kind of left me behind there. So, uh, this could be interesting actually. So rather than a limit order, sometimes we can play it like this, where it breaks out of the support, retests, and we can go short. We could attempt that, right? Because buyers step in, bring it back up, but they don't get that momentum, and then it comes back down, kind of like that crab claw I was talking about. So could look a little bit like this. And yeah, once again, maybe I would want to go just above this swing high for my stop loss. So we go like 40 pips on this one. That might be a lot for this pair. I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, 40 pips is probably too much for this pair. Okay. That's a little bit too much. So let's say let's go like that, and then we could go like 30 pips, I guess. I really don't like it. A little awkward, but that's okay. And then start with 3-1, something like that. Yeah, so that could be a setup for CAD CHF to align with the economics there. Not too bad. Obviously, this level was so nice, but that's a bit of a different play. It's not really a limit order. It's like a break and retest type of setup, but I'll add that one to our watch list there. And the very last one that we wanted to see was AUD USD. We can look at that real quick. Oh, this might be good. Yeah, we had sell off. Yeah, we had a sweep here. I'm looking at a technical level where we've had some good reversion, and I see one right here. So maybe if that aligns with the 382, that would be a nice setup. Now the problem is with these wicks, it's like, okay, where do you put the Fibonacci? You want to put it here? You want to put it here? I don't think there's a right answer for that. We could put it at the top of that wick, and that aligns very closely with the 382. So I think that would be the optimal entry, right at the 382. Be very close to good. So you set that up short. And then for this defense, I'd want to go 30 pips just above that 50 level as extra line of defense, and then we can target that 3-1 to start, like so. Okay, so that would be set up for AUD USD. I'll move that one over to the watch list. We'll see how it plays out. And yeah, I think that's good. I mean, we look at coffee sometimes, guys. If if you don't know anything about it, it's 3 times more volatile than Bitcoin. So it's crazy. And look at that 200 EMA bounce we had there. Wow, I didn't even know. 200 EMA bounce. It bounced off the 200 EMA and ran up 7.5% in like a day, in just a few days, 2 days or so. Now look at this. This could be like a nice place to short. I don't know anything about how coffee moves or what moves it. It's probably like global weather patterns and like trade policy, I imagine. So If there's going to be a hurricane in a country that produces a lot of coffee, then go long on coffee. So watch the weather, maybe. Dude, you can. Okay, John, do you trade coffee? John's saying he made $5 on coffee. Or did you just sell someone a coffee? He's probably trolling me. Yeah, I sold my neighbor coffee, made $5. No way. But what? Where can you trade coffee? I don't even know. I have to. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what broker I can trade coffee on. Coffee's one of those things like you could get if you get a sniper tick entry, you could literally make like thousands of dollars. I mean, it just runs like you wouldn't believe. I mean, look how clean the run is. Like imagine getting in short here. And you don't think if you don't think that's a good move, let me show you. This is a 23% run on coffee. Just to give that some context on Bitcoin, I'll give you some context on Bitcoin. 23% on Bitcoin is $16,000. So if you caught a $16,000 move on Bitcoin, that is equivalent to that little move on coffee. So coffee traders are the most craziest psychopaths on the planet. Oh, look, we actually opened really strong on Bitcoin this morning. Pumped almost 2%, $2,000. Not bad. He made his coffee at home. Yeah, and saved $5. Nice. So you use the PFK Alpha to optimize coffee and you traded it. That's really interesting. I hope it goes well. What you should do is with the set file, you should make it like a huge risk to reward, like a 1 to 8 or 1 to 10 or something, just because it moves so strongly in one direction. What's going on with Bitcoin? My gosh, that's crazy. Look at that. That's a huge candle to open the week. Okay, so I think that's it, guys. Once again, if you want to get the Edge Finder for yourself, you just Google Edge Finder. It's A1 Trading. It's like $700. I don't know how much it is. Sometimes it's on sale for like $700, but you pay it once and you have it forever. Super useful if you like to swing trade. But yeah, I think that's all the best setups. There's nothing else that is looking great. I don't trade oil. Nasdaq's same situation as SPY, right? So we'll leave it at that. I think we have enough. I think we went over enough there. How many do we get? Let's see. Oh yeah, we got a bunch. We got like 1, 2. We got like 8 or 9. So we're laughing. Do you ever trade NDQ futures? No, I don't. Well, just on evals. Wait, are you talking about NASDAQ futures? Yeah, just on prop firm evals, but I prefer SPY a little bit more. Although I think NASDAQ's probably better in terms of like contracts versus like I think it's more volatile, right? Okay, guys, I'll be on tomorrow morning to trade the open range breakout. Look for some PFK Alpha entries. Hang out with the VIP. Thanks for coming, and I'll post this on YouTube if you missed any. No worries, and have a good rest of your days. Peace.